Welcome back to How Real Estate Changed My Life. If you've listened to any previous episodes in the past, you know that what I do is I interview people that can honestly say that real estate has changed their life one way or another, either by profession or just by growing wealth or income or what have you. And I am very fortunate to have a gentleman that I was introduced to, I don't know, it was a year, maybe 2 years ago, from a neighbor of ours who's also in real estate. And she said, "You got to talk to Charlie." So I'm here. I got Charlie Stamps here, and I want to learn about you and your story and your journey in real estate and how you got there and what it is to you and why you chose that. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you're all about.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on this. I never thought I would get into real estate. Honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do. In high school, I wanted to play college baseball, just mess around, have fun. Thought I'd figure that out later. And then after my junior year, I graduated. I had enough credits to finish over the summer and was going to go to community college, knock out some hours, and then go play baseball somewhere and just have fun. And then I had an opportunity to go intern up in Washington, D.C., kind of a spontaneous decision. I decided to go up there, take the internship. Still planning on going to college, but I was like, why not? Now is the time in life to do something like this. And then 3 weeks in, they offered me a full-time position at that organization. So I had a decision to make. I decided to take the job, move up there full-time, and just, at least for now, press pause on college. And I stayed up there for about a year, really loved it, working with some great people. And then eventually I was like, okay, this is great, but you don't make a lot of money unless you're a lobbyist or a politician or selling books. So I decided to move back home, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. I actually stayed working with that organization, doing a donor relation role, but working from home. So I had a ton of free time. And one thing I saw in common with all folks who were successful was, whether it was startups or stocks, they all owned real estate. I was like, okay, this is the industry I want to at least dip my toe into, because I wanted to be financially successful.
Yeah, because you got to actually talk to people that have financially made it, and
Yeah.
it's kind of neat. You get a little X-ray into their lives and where their wealth is or came from.
Yeah, well, working with donors did that a lot too, because all these people are financially successful. And regardless of what they did, they have rental properties, they develop land, they hold land, a lot of them. And so I was just like, this seems to be working really well for them. And so I originally thought I was going to get some rentals, grow a rental portfolio. I didn't know what that looked like, but I was like, I need to start meeting with good people, smart people who do this and figure out the ropes. So I met with that friend that you mentioned a moment ago. I met with you some, a lot of other people who had made it in this industry, just doing renovations, just trying to meet people while still doing my political job.
So what stood out when you talked to all those people?
Well, they all had a plan. They wanted to acquire as much property as possible. And at this point, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm going to get a rental house. I'm going to rent out their rooms to friends and then try to make it a full rental, keep just growing one at a time. But really at this point, I didn't know what I was thinking. I didn't know what I was going to do. But all these people they had 10, 15, 20 properties. And it seemed like a long way away, but I was like, well, you got to start somewhere. And so started looking, how am I going to get my first property?
And
well, took an unexpected turn. I met up with one of my buddies whose dad is a successful builder. He does high-end customs, land development, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, well, why don't you guys start your own home building company? So we did that, and he was teaching us how to build, which that was a shock to me. I didn't know I was going to do that, but teach us how to build.
It's an amazing opportunity. You had an opportunity to learn from somebody that's out there doing it. That's a pretty cool opportunity to have.
And it was very much a blessing. It was not something I was expecting at all. I was catching up with an old friend and then made that adjust, and it was a no-brainer. And actually, shortly after we started that company, I got married and we bought our first home. So I guess that was technically our first property, but we finished our build, sold that one. It was a property out in Saginaw. And now we're currently about halfway done with our next build, a little bit bigger, out nasal.
Nice. So is that what you're going to do? Is that going to be your build and sell? Is that your model that you're kind of settled on, at least for now?
Until we build up a little more money, the expenses of living and being married caught me off guard. And so acquiring is going to take a little longer, but I think what we're going to start doing, especially with this next phase, is building 3 at a time, 2, 3 at a time, selling 2, keeping 1, or selling 1 and keeping 1, and just slowly, making a little bit of cash, but also building up a portfolio of rentals.
Nice. Very cool.
And to me, it made a lot more sense to build them because I was looking for flips, and especially in Keller, South Lake, you're not going to find great deals. There's so many people out there looking, and if you can build them, you can get them at cost, and then you already have some skin in the game. Start renting them out; they're only going up in value. So it's kind of my plan for now.
Okay. So, what challenges did you have on that first house?
Honestly, the inspections that really caught us off guard. A lot of the process we were getting walked through because it was our first one, but we got held up. Saginaw, he told us, especially, was difficult, and for about a month we were held up on the framing inspections. They gave us, I believe it was 25 red tag items. Ooh. Yeah. So we were like, this is crazy. They came back out, met us with our framer. We're going over items. They added 7 items to the second inspection, which I don't think you're supposed to do that, but they did. We knocked out what we thought they did. It was just back and forth. At one time, they brought out 4 inspectors to go through it with us. Again, I didn't know if this was...
That's a lot of attention for one single house.
It wasn't a huge house either, but I think maybe it was, they're like a few new guys in this area, make sure they're doing it right, which I understand, but it was definitely a pain. We lost a lot of money on interest with the house sitting, but it was a good learning experience. I'm sure we'll have to deal with inspectors again, but that was probably one of the bigger things. And then just learning that you got to be reasonably priced whenever you're trying to sell. We were probably 20,000 over, and as a result, it sat for about a month and a half longer than we would have liked it to. So just looking at comps, being realistic, that was a big takeaway.
So were you able to piggyback on your friend's dad for subs on the contractor side to be able to? Okay, so that worked out.
He gave us a big list of his people, probably 2 people for everything, 2 groups. So that was huge because if I was just doing it myself, I would have no idea who's good.
Also, always having problems finding subs or contractors, like always. So that was a nice help that he gave you. So, what would you do different this time, or the next one you did?
Well, a lot of it's us doing the work ourselves, not ourselves, but managing the project. Where his father helped us a lot on the first one, but being very intentional, looking through everything, making sure it looks right, just double, triple checking. And we're actually out of the county on this next one, so
you don't have to worry about anything.
We don't have to worry about it, but still, all the more pressure on us to do it right. So we have a lot of help, a lot of people getting eyes on it, but just being very intentional about details.
Yeah, I've only built 2 houses from scratch, and both of them were in the county, and it was shockingly easy. Now, I could have made a lot more money if I'd picked my subs really well, but I just handed it to a contractor that I knew had a lot of connections and handed him my blueprints and said, hey, I want this thing built. And he was able to build it shockingly fast, primarily because it was in the county and he didn't have to get inspections for everything. But I overbuilt it in every way just because I didn't want to have something to come back on me. But it went really well. It was the septic tank was probably one of the hardest parts because I had to get an engineer, like a soil engineer, and a sample, and then I had to get all that. That was done by the county, and it's not a racket, but there weren't a lot of options for approved vendors for septic design or something of that nature. So that was my one thing that I just felt like I didn't get the best deal on.
Was this a custom build for yourself, or were you on?
Yeah. So I did. It was down outside of Granbury on the lake. Well, the neighborhood was on the lake. My house was a few blocks off, but it was shockingly easy. I went to a architect that had done. He had quite a portfolio. He's like, "Hey, any plan here is $500. I can custom anything you want. It's X amount of dollars per hour, which is a lot. Or I can take anything you have or any of the ones he's done, and it's like however many dollars an hour to work with it. So I went through his whole portfolio and found there were so few houses that fit on my lot the appropriate way. And so I found one. I'm like, here's $500. He's like, okay, what's the address? He plopped it all out, and I went paid him $500, and he had all the, the the blueprints and all that ready to go. So I was like, that's pretty dang good. And then the next one, I was like, man, it came with like a 1-car garage, which is not ideal. I'm like, hey, really would like to stretch that to 2-car garage, and that's just going to open up. I think it was like a laundry room more. So they made it a little bit better on square footage too. And so he made those adjustments to the same plan. I was like, man, it's going to cost a whole lot. And it was, I guess when you get into the architect software, it's just a click and drag. So it was like literally just a few bucks. I'm like, man, I wish I'd known that the first time. I was so worried about money on the first one. But it worked out really well. They both flew pretty quick, especially the one that I was able with the 2-car garage in.
The guy we work with, he does a great job, and he has a lot of plan options. So we're only on our second one, but our mentor says he has 4 or 5 plans that he really likes, and he goes through those. And if you're building all over, up north, west, mainly northwest of DFW, I mean, it's so spread out. No one's going to notice. I don't think they're good plans. People will like it. So,
well, it's a floor plan. Yeah, it's a footprint or floor plan. So if somebody likes it, they're gonna like it. Like they're not gonna be like, oh, there's this guy like 2 miles down the road who's got the same house, or even like these builders, like the mass builders, even the ones that are not. Well, I guess they are luxury, but they're not custom, but they're semi-custom. Like was that neighborhood off of 377 and 170 Marshall Ridge? Like there's some houses that are all very, very, very similar, almost identical, just slight little different elevations. But when the floor plan works, the floor plan works.
Yeah, everyone's not going house to house looking at. Yeah, I know. When someone comes to your house, they come to your house, not your neighbors. So it doesn't really matter that much. But
exactly.
My parents actually just finished a family home up in Oklahoma, and it's east, so it's actually in the Ouachita Mountains.
Oh, I love that area.
It doesn't broke it over. It's beautiful, but
I know you think you're like in a slightly flatter Tennessee. Like it's just they're not mountains, but they're hills and they're green. It's nice.
It's really nice. We have some friends up there who they're really into hunting, and they had us up, and we're like, let us know if any land comes available up here. So we got about 180 acres on a mountain, and so like I said, it's like a massive hill, but it feels like a mountain. You're out of that tornado zone. And so it's a little safer, but we got the land, started building probably about the land 3 years ago, and we finished the house 6 months ago. It was local builders, so you're dealing with Oklahoma riffraff, a little bit of that, but they did an okay job. Health issues caused the builders to have to drop the project. We got some Dallas guy who one of the subs recommended. And I think it took a year or two off my dad's life dealing with this guy.
I can imagine.
This guy was terrible. And every step of the way, taking money, cashing in the credits for himself with extra supplies, trying to get paid for stuff that was already done by the previous builders. Just a mess. And then, just popping off every time we questioned it. And so finally we got it done, and the house is beautiful. My mom, she does interior design, and she did it herself. And then about a month after we have it, the road going up the mountain right on top of the house breaks. We get 6 inches of rain, entire first floor flooded. Just right when they didn't need anything else on their plate. So that was like a 4-month process. They rip all the wood floors out. All the baseboards, they come out, and we just now finished everything, bought all new furniture, all new rug, redid the wood floors, and now it's good. So they redid the road, new drainage system, and hopefully it's good to go.
So that's one of the things that we can take away is when you're building something new, you've got to take into consideration all the other things that could happen, like the drainage and some of the stuff you can't predict, like, But North Carolina, I mean, they got hammered. And that was just that's not normal, but it's kind of one of the challenges. So, what advice would you give to anybody else that's kind of wanting to do what you've done so far in building?
Without a doubt, just learn from someone good. Learn from someone who's done it before, someone who has, good wisdom they can share with you. When we talked before I was even doing the builds, you would just give me, logical advice, but stuff that I might not have thought about. But get a mentor. I need to make money now because I'm married and have a baby on the way. But
All right. Wow. I didn't know that. Congratulations.
thank you. Excited. But, especially for young guys who have an opportunity, or girls, but mainly young guys who have an opportunity to go work for someone for cheap or for free just to learn. That's definitely what I would do if I had to start again. Find a mentor, learn from them, and just be appreciative.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that they want to skip that step where hard work, where you're not getting paid huge money. Like a lot of people just want to skip that. And it's so dangerous to just skip the learning part. But
That's kind of where I was at when I was first telling how I thought I was going to get into real estate with the rentals. I thought I would just buy one, put 20% down and then just keep going. But it's not that simple. You gotta be making money. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be ready for unexpected costs and backup.
And that 20%, yeah, you can come up with 20% from saving, but it takes a long time to save 20%, especially when you're young. So yeah, I think I don't know if I encouraged you, but I definitely thought that the room to rent, like with roommates, was probably a good way to go with the FHA first time home buyer route and rent those spare rooms to buddies from church or what have you.
I would have done that if I didn't need the whole house now. But
Yeah, if women do that.
what's that?
Women do that. Like when you get married, like
Yeah. I don't mind renting out a bedroom now, but she would be down for that.
you don't want to. It's worth the waiting.
Yeah. Well, it's good, but having good friends, you don't want a reckless individual in your home. But yeah, it's a fun process. I'm enjoying just learning everything, progressing, seeing myself growing in my knowledge, but also just in being realistic, not trying to stretch myself too far.
Yep. Well, how about talking about the 20% down on, buying a first time home? Like, so building a house, how is the financing different than maybe another route? Like, did you have like a specific bank you had to go to, a different type of mortgage? Were you able to ride on your friend's dad's line of credit? How did that work?
He has good relationships with Pinnacle Bank,
Okay.
and they've been incredible.
I've heard good stuff about them.
What's that?
I've heard good stuff about them.
They're great. The people we work with, they're very helpful, and obviously having someone vouch for you is good. But we get a construction loan, 20% down, and I have a business partner, we're 50-50, so 10 each. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And if we're doing one at a time, it's a lot easier to put 10% down than if we were doing 5 at a time. But I think that this next one we'll probably do 2. We'll be able to afford it. Yeah, just build them quick, build them right. But until you have a big portfolio or a lot of cash on hand, I feel like the bank probably won't want to get too overextended with 2 young guys and a new company.
But you're a small potato. I can certainly see it's a snowball effect. So your first one's your hardest, then you do another one, then maybe 2, then 2, and then 4. So I can see how that snowball. You're ahead of the game for someone your age. So you're probably the other people that are doing this are probably 15 years older than you. I would assume they out there working as a supervisor or something for a builder. So you're going to get to go a lot farther. I think a lot sooner than most. So that's kind of cool to watch. So what other, like, as far as, so you have a regular job, you built a house, you're going to build some more. How do you think that's changed you as a person?
Just realizing that you have to work for something, but if you're consistent, it's like everything, going to the gym, I can be real motivated for a week, but if I quit going, I'm not going to see any improvement. Just put in the work every day. And for me, especially when I'm young now, but when I was younger, I would do about 90%, like get by, do a decent job. But whenever I realized do the extra 10%, go above and beyond, you'll have a lot of favor with people, with the people you're working with, the people who are doing jobs for you. building relationships. If you're just like a genuine person, also following God. Whenever I started, living with integrity and really submitting to Him, supernatural things started coming in, and
It's funny how that happens.
I never could have generated.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the way I've grown the most. Just being diligent.
Now, what about your friends you went to high school with? Have you kept up with any of them?
A lot of them are in college. They're in their junior, senior year, so they're about to get into the workforce. But they're out of state. They're either, some are at TCU, but OU, Ole Miss, they're off doing their thing. They're having fun, so we catch up, but not too many of them. I've made a lot of new friends, especially being married, new stage of life.
Yeah, different stage.
But I'm trying to be with people who, obviously, number one, have the same beliefs, strong Christian men, but people of integrity who are working hard and want to be successful. When I'm around my friends who they care about partying, having fun, it's great. I still love them, but I kind of lose focus on what's most important. Whenever I'm
and they're in a completely different headspace. Right, their priorities aren't the same. When you got those obligations, like everything changes. So my wife, she's like, yeah, the Kyle I knew in college isn't the Kyle that I'm married to. Not a negative thing. It's just I didn't have a mortgage. Didn't have like any real stresses. Like I could pass my classes without any challenges. So there's no stress. But when you get out in the real world and you're like, well, I got kids to feed and, you've got a mortgage, and then you're like, well, I got this job that I still have to do a certain level of performance to keep it. And then now I'm trying to like coordinate acquiring a lot and coordinating contractors and financing and everything. So yeah, you just have a different life.
Very much so.
Yeah.
It is cool. I have two friends who they went to South Lake. Carol, one listening knows South Lake, and they were buddies like me. We party, hanging out, chase girls. Like that was kind of what we were trying to do in high school. But they went to college. They had a good landscaping business in high school. Went to college. They kind of realized they're wasting their time, and which obviously college isn't a waste of time for everyone. A lot of people need it, especially in this industry. But I feel like for my generation, a lot of people are going to college who don't need it.
Yeah.
And I can say that firsthand. I feel like I would have hurt myself a lot if I went to college. Wasted a few years of my life, but they realized they were in that boat. So they dropped out and they started their company. You may have heard of Kingswood. They're still small, but they're doing a lot of work and they're just have a ton of success.
That's awesome.
The guys my age who I was friends with, choose to work hard, put their nose down, and they're doing really well now. So, and they're just growing their company real fast.
Well, see, I think what it is people go to high school and they graduate and they don't know what they're supposed to do or what they're going to do for a living. So college is the natural step. And so, like it says, like these gentlemen and you had a little bit more of an opportunity to kind of see what is possible that others didn't know was possible. So it's kind of like you go to college to get a good job. Well, if you can create a good job or a business, then you kind of got your end result. You end up shortcutting to go straight into it. I'm a big believer in what I learned in the university wasn't the classroom necessarily, like financing, accounting, yes. But for the most part, what I learned was that the student organizations, like I got to be super involved in like just different groups. My fraternity was a really good learning experience. Being an officer, I had to go speak to sororities. I was a student orientation leader. Like when new kids came to the university, I was the tour guide and helped answer questions and all that. So that was a really good opportunity to learn how to speak to adults that were asking me tough questions, or how to be in front of large crowds, how to have organization as far as like putting events together, things of that nature. And that's where my education was in. So that was the benefit. I could have got in different ways, but so yeah, I do think the university plays a role, but it's not as big as people think it is.
Yeah. I feel like for your generation, and you're not a ton older than me, but I would say you're at least a generation older.
I'm 20 something years older than you. Well, I'm 46. You're what, 20, what?
21.
21? Yeah. So, yeah.
But it was a lot more important then. And for my grandparents and your parents, a lot more important. However, now it's almost an indoctrination center. So many of not my friends, but people I went to school with who were kind of on the fence, politically, with their faith, they go off and they come back different people.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to Grand Canyon or Liberty up in Virginia, you're even Texas Christian, TCU, at the orientation, my friends were like, they said that we're not Christian. They openly say that. So it's really, unless you're going to a very strong based college, you're going to get these professors who are just, they tell you you don't need to listen to your parents. They tell you, this is the new way. The liberal way is the new way. And they're really going to try to indoctrinate you. Proof being, all these kids go to college and they come back with a completely different mindset. They lose the faith. And so I think, I'm pretty against it. There are a lot of people who need it, but you need to make sure you're strong in your beliefs before you go into, an environment like that.
All my classes were engineering, finance, or economics. So it
Lectured too much.
yeah, it was like, can you do this math problem? Yeah. All right, good. And that was kind of my thing. I think I really yeah. So I remember I took when my grades went down when I went into business from engineering. So I went engineering, I would switch over to business. And the classes, I remember one of my classes I did the worst in were management. Right. So kind of ironic that I have a business now and that was my worst. But that let me know what I needed to hire. I needed to hire good managers because that was not me. But I was fortunate. I went to Texas A&M University, so it's still a pretty conservative.
Yeah, A&M. I have some real good friends at A&M. That's one. If I had to go back, A&M would be high on the list.
Yeah, good.
A lot of good people there.
I think so. So what else?
I guess anyone listening may not know this, but today is the 5th. It's election day. So
yeah, big day.
We were talking about this a little bit earlier, but what are your predictions? Do you have a strong opinion? I know you have a strong.
I have strong desires. Strong opinion. I don't know. I don't think I have to set my business up and my investments up in a way that it doesn't matter who wins.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people take for granted that they're just a subject of the environment or a product of the environment, and that you don't get any control over their life. And so maybe they vote one way because they think, well, I'm in a teachers union and, the Democrat Party is better for me. And so that's what I'm going to vote for. Or some people may say, oh, well, I'm a small business owner. I'm going to be voting Republican or whatever. There's a lot of truth to those. Like if you want to say, hey, that it's best for me financially. But I think people need to really analyze, if this side wins and this is what they're saying happens and this side wins, like, how can I set myself up to where I'm okay? So my thing is single family homes. You always have to have a single family home. Like there's always going to be a demand for rentals. Now there's going to be more regulation potentially if the Democrat Party really gets to go their direction. I would a property management company. That means that I'm going to be in more demand because do-yourself landlords are going to have more regulations to abide by. So they're going to need people like me to step up and help them. So that's how I've kind of hedged myself in that regard. And, innovations, things of that nature, if that happens, I need to have more of a home service business. So I've got guys that turn wrenches and use paintbrushes and saws because you can't outsource that to an AI program. You can't outsource that to China. So I need boots on the ground kind of people team. So there's, I don't know. It's, I would prefer Trump to win. I think he's the better option for a multitude of reasons. And I think he's the best for me financially, but I've hedged myself in case that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like especially social media and even talking to people, you feel, people are saying what you're saying. You're thinking about it a lot better than I'm sure a lot of people. You're planning for either way, but it seems like he's going to win. The energy behind him and people are not happy with. No one even likes Harris. They just hate Trump.
Yeah. And,
you don't see anyone be like, oh, I love what Harris did on the border. I love what she's done as VP. It's F Trump. Like no one likes him. Either you love him or you hate him. But I'm seeing a lot of people wearing Trump stuff, wearing MAGA stuff on all the polls on Twitter and stuff.
It is kind of interesting. Trump's been out on all the podcasts, and that's the 2024 what was it back when Biden or Obama ran? He hit social media more hard than the traditional politicians, and he won. And a lot of that was through the social media influence, I believe. I'm not an expert. And I think Trump has adopted some of the new mediums, like the podcast, and he's out there talking to anybody and everybody wherever they are. And if he wins, it's going to be because of that, because he's been out there vocal and having conversations with people. And Harris, I don't think she's out there really having honest, solid conversations with real people. I think she's in the traditional mindset of election. I think, do your little pedestal everywhere and regurgitate maybe it's the same speech or very similar speech from one day to the next day. And then I think from what I've seen, I haven't seen her get asked really hard questions about her policies, which, come on. I mean, if you're running for president, let's get asked hard questions.
Well, she's the teleprompter queen. They do their own camera angle. You see that even on Q&A, she has the teleprompter. It's set up. So I can't imagine her going on Rogan or something.
Well, she just turned down Rogan. I just listened to Rogan. I've never really been a big Rogan listener, but I listened to him when he interviewed a few people that I found fascinating. And he's extremely thoughtful, very broad. Like, he can carry a conversation with anybody, just anybody. And so I didn't listen to all of the Trump one, but dude, he did 3 hours solid, just talking, just normal people conversation. And I think Kamala, it would have been to her benefit if she could have those conversations, like to show that she could have those there. Just, I'm a real person. This is me. Like, not, oh, I want to do this or this as a president. Like, just, who are you? And I don't think she did that in her whole campaign, which I think's to her detriment. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know who's going to win. I think Trump has a pretty good shot. We'll see.
People want to change. That's one thing Vance has done a good job at. He says, I think Walt's slogan is a new path forward. It's like, we're on the same path. You're in office. Like, Vance did a good job highlighting that. But this isn't a political podcast.
No, it's not. But, it's interesting. And so a lot of the real estate guys that I hang out with and listen to, not all, it's extremely lopsided Trump, very lopsided Trump. He's a businessman. He's economically, his policies make more sense to them. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it's a gentleman that I don't know his name, but every once in a while he'll pop up on my feed, and he goes around visiting with, I've been moving around a lot, visiting with people that are wealthy, and he asks them, like, how did you get wealthy? Because he's like your age. So he's like, just inquisitive minds want to know, like, what advice do you have for me? That sort of thing, or the next generation. And this last couple he just was at the end, would ask him, like, who are you voting for? And then it was 100% Trump. He was taping these in Austin, which is a very liberal city compared to the rest of Texas. So I thought that was fascinating. But I expected some mixture in there because he didn't care what they answered. He was looking for a answer. Yeah, it was fascinating. And they all had very different things. It was and I didn't agree with all of the people that justified their vote for Trump. One is like, Trump's a go-getter. He gets crap done. Like, he's all business. So I agree with that. Another one, it was a gentleman, and I don't think he liked women. And I was like, because he said Hillary wasn't qualified and Kamala wasn't qualified. And I just didn't understand, like, I'm not going to disagree with Harris, but, to say that Hillary wasn't qualified, she was involved with that whole ecosystem than Trump was when he ran. So I thought it was interesting, but they all had different reasons why they were saying Trump. So I thought that was fascinating instead of having one common answer. So
that is interesting. Yeah. It's you hear a lot of successful people. Hollywood doesn't, but a lot of business people. I mean, Trump's a businessman himself, so
yeah,
he's a real estate guy. Maybe have Trump on next podcast if
he has an invite anytime. So actually, I like JD Vance. Like, I think our country would do better if we had more people that come from backgrounds where they struggled to get where they are, because I think they appreciate and relate to people better, and make better decisions, knowing how they impact us small people. And I don't think everybody takes that into consideration when they're making these decisions.
A lot of these black politicians and Trump too. He's a billionaire,
Mhm.
which I don't think is a bad thing at all. I think that's great. Shows you're successful.
But he didn't make his money giving government contracts out and getting kickbacks for political donations.
Yeah, no, I'm all for him being a billionaire. I think that's a good thing.
No, I do too. I'm like, it's just we got these politicians that are that's a profession that they made a reasonable salary, but all of a sudden walk out with multiple millions of dollars, and that's just shady.
That's the appeal to Trump.
Yeah.
He didn't need it. He didn't need the. He lost a lot of money, I'm pretty sure. But
Oh yeah. If nothing else, just for attorney fees.
yeah, hopefully that stuff's over. But if he loses, it's not going to look good for him. I doubt the attacks legally are going to cease, and physically. I mean, what he's on his third assassination attempt now.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad.
It just shows how bad they don't want him in. They're desperate.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be funny is if he pardoned Hillary and then make her accept the pardon. It'd be a good way to stop the political warfare. And if she doesn't accept it, go after her.
So it was very interesting. I think he was on Rogan, and Donald Trump talked about how he did not go after Hillary for what he was mentioning as illegal things.
Yeah.
And he did it because he said he didn't go after her like they went after him because he thought it would be bad for the country. Yeah, I thought that was admirable. I thought that was interesting. So, but yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone was chanting "lock her up," but it was a good for him to take the high road. It's a shame he had to go through what he went through, but
yeah. So how do you think the election fallout will be for your real estate building empire, either or?
Well, I mean, obviously I'm praying for Trump. We need a better economy. I mean, in every way, it's going to be more affordable for me, for everyone. But if he loses, it's going to suck, but just keep working, keep making money, and just prepare. I want us out of wars. He kept us out of wars. We have the Middle East conflicts. We still have Ukraine, I think. That's still going on. And I think he had no new wars when he was president. I think he'll get us back to that state. So most important piece, we don't want to be in a war. Close second, the economy. And then, I love his stuff with tariffs. I mean, it's
Jesus.
It's America first.
Yeah, it is. And it will make some things here cost more, at the very least, initially.
Yeah.
But it will protect our industries, bring important jobs here, but also it's for security. Like when we had the scandemic that hit, and we're all looking at medications and they're all made in like India, like, hey, I'm cool with India. I'm cool with China. Like, but we don't need everything being imported, especially things that are important that important. That's kind of scary. That should have been a bigger wake up call than it was. I know on the microchips and wafers, they've really tried to focus more in the United States now, and I think they're doing it. But Trump did make it a bad point, or made it a big point, that the way they pushed, bringing wafer facilities to the United States, they incentivized, in essence, foreign corporations to build factories here. And he said he would have made tariffs to where American companies would have built them here. Or I thought that was interesting. So,
close mentor of mine, not in the real estate industry, but in the manufacturing, big name guy, great man himself personally. He's so huge on bringing manufacturing back. He's opened my eyes to how important it is. World War II, we out-manufactured the enemy, and we were a powerhouse, and now we've outsourced all of our stuff to China, India, and during COVID, we saw how bad that could backfire. Fortunately, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but if we go to war with China, they pretty openly are not pro-America. If something like that happens, we're going to be in trouble.
We need those jobs. Like, there's enough people here that need to work. And I think a lot of people don't work because they just don't think that they can work in a way that's going to make them they're not going to get ahead. So you can get ahead if you have an honest to goodness, solid job that you could feel proud to be a part of that you feel like you're getting ahead to some regard, as opposed to just stuck in some minimum wage or close to minimum wage hand to mouth lifestyle?
Yeah, very much so.
Well, all right. So this was our political slash real estate podcast. But so what else would you give last, like we gave some advice to people that would listen. So what overall, how would you say real estate's changed your life in big picture?
Well, I'm far from an expert, but I'm just trying to learn all I can, and it's set me up and given me a clear vision of how I can become financially successful, financially free, not have to go to office 9 to 5. And I, I love my political job. I'll keep it. I'll keep it for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing that I get to work from home and do both. But real estate's fascinating. I love it. I feel like it's a good way to build wealth, provide for my family, and learn something fun.
Well, good. Thanks. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. I know that you may not want to advertise everything you do in the world to everybody, but there's going to be somebody listening to this like, hey, this kid, he's 20 years old when he built his first house. That's an accomplishment and something to be proud of. So I want everybody to know that that's an opportunity for them too. And it wasn't this amazing, crazy hurdle to make it happen. Yeah, you had to have a little cheddar in your bank account to come up with a down payment. And you had to make the right connections, but it's completely an option out there for people if that's something they want to go after. So I appreciate you. And I do anticipate coming up, several seasons down the road and hearing an update on how your next houses are going. And then I expect for you to text me all your opportunities to brag about yourself to me also. So I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Let's start back on. I appreciate you having me. Let me share my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And my office is right around the corner, so swing in anytime.
We'll see coffee soon.
Oh, absolutely. All right. So have a good one. Thank you so much.
Sir, thank you.